Alright, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, all praise, honor, and glory is to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, Wahar Rakah Kodash, which is ancient Hebrew for the name of the Heavenly Father, His only begotten Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yahweh being the true name, or the one you people out there refer to as God, and His beloved Son, whom the world knows as Jesus Christ, would be Yahweh Shah. Those are the correct names of the true powers of all heavens and earth. Alright. Also want to give double honors to the head apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there that's also laboring in this work. So this lesson right here is going to be centered around captivity. Alright. The spirit of captivity, which is an entity that was created by Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. And the spirit of captivity is not going anywhere. Alright. It's only going to be translated over to the other nations, just like we served captivity. Alright, the house of bondage will always be open, but the occupants change, so to speak. Alright, right now, we occupying the house of bondage. But once we are, relieved from this captivity and the Lord deliver us, then the so-called white man is going to occupy the house of bondage. Alright, why? Because captivity is a spirit that was created by Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. It's a living entity, alright? And that's the same when you consider rulership, alright? Rulership is a spirit. The throne will always be there, but the faces change. There's different nations that's going to sit on the throne. For an example, when you go back to the ancient Babylonians, alright? It was a point where they sat on the throne, where they ruled the known world, which was preceded by the Medo-Persian Empire. You had the Greeks and the Romans, and even to this very day, the so-called white man, Esau, they are sitting on the throne, all right? But that power is beginning to be transferred over to the nation of Israel with our Lord Yahweh Shah leading the charge, along with the 144,000 the governing body, which by default will be the kingdom of heaven. That's going to be the next government to rule the planet Earth. And in that, we're going to have subjects. We're going to have these other nations in subjection to us. All right? So the curses that fell upon us, and one of those curses being the spirit of captivity rested on us, but that is going to be translated over to our enemies. Matter of fact, let me start off with that. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, in the 7th verse, it says, "And the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." Yes, so the curses which are documented mainly in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, where it was prophesied, that our women will be harlots in the streets, the fruit of our womb will be cursed. Our kids will have an evil eye toward our brother, and ultimately, we're going to serve hardcore bondage. Well, those curses is going to be put upon our enemies, man. All right? Starting with the so-called white man, as well as all the other nations who have come up against us. Because when you go into history, it was not only the so-called white man who put us into captivity. All right? You had the so-called Chinese and Japanese, these Arabs, so-called Africans, Eastern Indians. Well, they all had a hand at one point of time in history of coming up against the children of Israel. But the most egregious captivity, if you will, that we had to suffer was right here in this current present time under the so-called white man here in America, Babylon the Great. All right? But that spirit of captivity is going to be translated over to you devils. Matter of fact, this is the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, in the 2nd verse. It says, "And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids." Right? So once we are brought back into our own land, okay, the land of Israel, we're going to possess our enemies, starting with the so-called white man, for servants and handmaids. All right? when we are brought up into power, we're going to actually have servants. Just like the so-called white man possess us as our servants and handmaids to this very day. Well, guess what? That spirit of captivity has rested on the planet Earth. It's not going anywhere, man. Again, the house of bondage is constantly open. And the next occupants is going to be Esau, all right? It says, and they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Yeah, and it don't take, any, deep digging, no thorough examination, to come to the conclusion, who are your oppressors, man? The so-called white man. So the scripture says, and they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So this is what you got to look forward to, you so-called white people, man. You are now about to enter into the house of bondage, okay? Because captivity is not going anywhere, man. All right, that spirit of slavery, captivity is an entity that was created by Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, now I got some information I was going into early this morning, okay? And this article reads, remains of blacks forced into labor after slavery are discovered in Texas. And the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua is bringing this information out, all right? Because what you're witnessing is the day of court, okay? This is court session, man. And the suspect is Esau. And right now the Lord is laying out on display all the atrocities, the crimes, that this man has committed, his ill dealings toward the children of Israel. Well, it's being brought up. This man is being brought up on those charges, man. All right? And you got these devils, they like to justify themselves. They like to acknowledge, well, we understand that slavery was a terrible time in history, and it should have never happened. And they even go as far in their feeble attempts to try to cover it up, to cover up this dirt, you see? All right, by attempting to take slavery out of the textbooks. Well, guess what? We're in a time where the Lord is fulfilling the prophecy of uncovering the locks and making bare the leg of Esau. So Esau is being exposed, all right? And this article right here is more exposure and more evidence against this devil, man, all right? More proof that this man is going to be justified in going into captivity, all right? It says the remains of dozens of people found at a construction site in Texas this year are most likely those of African Americans who were forced to work on a plantation there around the turn of the 20th century, officials said this week. Yeah, because it was a time where these devils, they so-called freed, Negroes, man. It was under their laws and jurisdictions that you had Negroes that was free. But they would double cross them, so to speak, and go back and kidnap them and take them and make them force them to serve slavery, man. It shows you that in the movie 12 Years a Slave. This guy Solomon Northup, he was allegedly, a free Negro. But he was kidnapped and brought down south and forced to serve slavery. And them devils, they history is riddled with events such as that, man. All right? That's why, we're going to be justified in taking you into captivity. All right? Because these devils, they don't honor their word. Here it is. They'll give certain Negroes paperwork saying that they was free, and they'll double cross them and kidnap them and force them to serve slavery. All right? That's it's a lot of history on that with these devils cover up, all right? But now the Lord is bringing it out. It says that finding announced Monday opens a window onto a little remembered period in which blacks in certain southern states were essentially treated like slaves post-emancipation. Yeah, when you go into the Emancipation Proclamation, that wasn't the freeing of slaves, man. And the evidence of that is you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are still in captivity to this very day. All right, you was never free. The Emancipation Proclamation was only a document transferring the slaves. All right, but what I wanted to point out, what jumped out to me is it says the finding announced Monday opens a window onto a little remembered period. See, and why is this not remembered? Because the so-called white man covered it up, man. All right, who you think control the media and everything that come out in these books? All right, the information that come out is filtered by the so-called white man. They release what they want to come out, man. But we in the time, again, where the Lord is actually laying out all the evidence against Esau before he bring down that judgment. So they can't cover these things up. Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept that come to mind, the book of Matthew, the 10th chapter, in the 26th verse. It says, fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. And this is an example of that, man. Okay? So it says the remains of about 95 people were discovered early this year on a construction site outside Houston, where the Fort Bend Independent School District is building a new school, according to the school district officials and court records. This week, archaeologists announced that the bones were most likely those of African-American laborers who worked as part of the so-called convict lease system, in which the state of Texas outsourced prisoners to work and live on plantations. The researchers estimated that the cemetery, which was on the plantation's grounds, was used from 1878 to 1911. Yes, so this is all the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because you got these devils, and their campaign is for you to forget about slavery. And you got a lot of Jake that's willing to concede to that, man. You know, there's a lot of Jake out there that's like, yeah, you know, forgive and forget, it was the past. But Yahweh Shem Yahushua didn't forget, man. All right? Tells you that in the book of Revelation, that the Lord have remembered her sins. Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept. Book of Psalms. Chapter 137. In verse 7, it says, remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem. See? So the Lord is bringing and calling to remembrance all the wickedness that you so-called white people have done. All right? Who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. So this article is a form of the Lord, you know, calling to mind all the wickedness of you devils. Because again, this is, hey, court is in session, man. And all the evidence is coming out on you devils, all right? It says about half of the bodies have been exhumed and more than 20 have been analyzed. Of those analyzed, archaeologists said all but one were male, ranging in age from about 14 to 70. All were African American, and some may have been former slaves, all right? So yeah, you devils, you know, you got to pay, all right? We're in a time where the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua is about to recompense on your own head what you done to his people, all right? And it tells you that in the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter, in the 6th verse. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you. And how did she reward us? One of the ways was serving hardcore bondage, okay? Hardcore slavery. Now, when you read, you know, in this article, which I'm not going to read it all, it's big. It's a pretty big article. I probably, you know, touch what I want to touch. But they talk about how a lot of those workers, those slaves, they work from sun up to sundown and to the point of death, man. They just worked until they died, man. So the Lord said, reward her as she rewarded us, all right? It says, and double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she have filled, fill to her double. So, hey, you know, a lot of times you have to wonder, you know, how in the hell Esau is going to make it through those 1,000 years of slavery, man? Because all the hell they put on us, hey, look, the Lord is going to double that, all right? And indeed, you are going to go into the house of bondage. Because again, the spirit of captivity is not going anywhere. As much as you devils want to slide it under the rug, you want to get rid of captivity, All right, but guess what? Captivity is coming back in a major way. And in fact, it never went anywhere, man. Captivity is always going to rest here on the planet Earth. The planet Earth is nothing more than a stage where rulerships are played out. And amongst those rulerships, there's going to be subjects. There's going to be those who are going to be inferior to other nations, man. And once the kingdom of heaven is set up, all of you other nations is going to be our servants, starting with the so-called white man. All right? This is the book of Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, in the 16th verse. It says, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. You know? And you don't take a heavy diagnosis to come to the conclusion who devoured us, man. It was the so-called white man. All right? And all thine adversaries, every one of them, all right, every one of them, you know, not just the male, not just the adults. I mean, every one of them, man, from the men, women, children, all right, the older men, older women, to the young babies. This is all of them, all right, shall go into captivity. Yeah, you're going to go into that house of bondage. Again, the house of bondage is always open, man, okay? Captivity is an entity. And that spirit is going to rest on Esau, the spirit of captivity, man. And the spirit of rulership is going to rest on us. And it's not going to change. Everything is going to be brought back into the way it was meant to be. Okay? It says, and every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be spoiled, and all they, Salakia, and all that prey upon thee will I give for prey. And this is dealing with Esau first and foremost. So yeah, the spirit of captivity is an entity, and it's alive and well. It's not going anywhere. And once the curses are reversed, that spirit is going to rest on you, man. The spirit of captivity is not going to just spill out of the earth and go out into the universe. You know, no, that spirit is going to rest on the planet Earth, and it's going to rest upon all our enemies, all right? So for you so-called white people, you so-called Africans, you know, you Eastern Indians, you Arabs, you Chinese and so-called Japanese, all you other nations, you heathens, get ready for captivity, man. All right? Let me end off the book of Revelation, 13th chapter, and starting at the 9th verse. If any man have an ear, let him hear. Yeah, so if any one of you out there who can understand these scriptures will understand it. For those of you can't, well, the hell with you, man. It tells you that in Romans, the 3rd chapter, what if some did not believe? So if any of you have an ear to understand, so be it. All right, verse 10, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. Right, so captivity isn't going anywhere. The spirit of captivity is here. The house of bondage is here, always. So the ones that led us into that house of bondage, they're going to be led into that same house. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So if you're not patiently waiting on the day to round up Esau and put chains on them, starting with the elites, it tells you that in the book of Psalms, I believe the 147th chapter, all right? You know, this is the honor of the saints, to bound their kings with chains. Well, if you're not patiently waiting on that, then you are not considered a saint, all right? And the saints is the Israelites, and in particular the elect, all right? So yeah, I just wanted to go into that, Lord willing. It was edifying. Till the next time I say shalom.